But the most terrifying thing, the thing that made Elena's scientific mind scream in silence, was the center of the circle. The snow there was completely flat. There was no trace of how those people had gotten there, or how they had left. It was as if they had fallen from the sky, walked in desperate circles, and then vanished back into thin air. It was a physical absurdity, an impossibility carved into reality. Elena tremblingly raised her camera, the sound of the shutter obscene in the stillness. She took picture after picture, trying to document this impossibility, to turn it into data, something that could be analyzed. A whirlwind? It couldn't create such distinct footprints. A small avalanche? It couldn't form a perfect circle. A hoax? Who could do this in such a desolate place, and for what purpose? Every explanation that flashed in her mind was shattered by the image before her. She felt a wave of vertigo, as if the ground beneath her feet was no longer solid. She glanced at Dmitri. He showed no curiosity or confusion. His face was a stone mask, but his eyes betrayed everything. They were wide, filled with an ancient fear, a horror passed down through generations. He took a single step back, an almost imperceptible movement, and his hand subtly tightened on a leather amulet hanging from his neck. He said nothing, only looked silently ahead, where the pass loomed faintly between the trees. His gaze was no longer that of a guide. It was the look of prey staring into the maw of a predator, the silence stretched, taut as a wire about to snap. Elena felt her chest constrict, the frigid air seeming unable to enter her lungs. She wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but her throat felt as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand. The circle of footprints before them wasn't just a mystery. It was a violation. A blatant trespass against the laws of the universe. She had always trusted Dmitri was the first to move. He didn't walk around the circle. He backed away, slowly, step by step, as if retreating from a sleeping beast. Then he turned and made a wide detour, staying far away from the cursed clearing. He didn't look back at Elena. That action was more terrifying than any warning. It meant, follow me, or stay here and die. Elena hurried after him, trying not to look back at the circle, but the image of the bare footprints pressed deep into the snow was seared onto her retinas. She could feel it behind her, a cold presence. An unanswered question watching them leave. They continued upward, deeper into the pass. The sky, already gloomy, now seemed to sink lower, the gray clouds churning like a massive shroud. The weak daylight was dying, giving way to a pale, sickly light. The feeling of being watched grew more and more pronounced. Elena kept glancing into the shadows between the trees, half expecting, half dreading to see something moving parallel to them. After a while, Dmitri stopped. They had reached a relatively flat area, partially sheltered by a large rock outcropping. This was it, the site of the old camp. But this place felt even more wrong than the circle of footprints. The air here was unusually heavy, so thick and still that Elena could hear the blood pulsing in her ears. A tomb-like silence. Dmitri pointed toward a flat rock. On it, a tin cup lay on its side, not a single spot of rust on it, so strangely shiny. It was as if someone had just finished drinking from it and set it down. Around the rock, the snow had melted in a small circle, revealing the dark, damp earth beneath. Even though the air temperature was well below freezing, Elena stepped cautiously, feeling as if she were intruding on a sacred place. Her foot tripped on something hard under the thin layer of snow. She bent down, brushing the snow away with her glove. It was a small notebook, its leather cover stiff with cold. But when she opened it, The pages inside were almost undamaged, and then she saw it. A diary entry written in ink, the handwriting shaky but still absurdly clear. The ink hadn't bled from moisture, hadn't faded with time. It looked as if it had been written yesterday. Date ... unknown. It gets dark so fast. Yuri keeps looking outside and saying there are two eyes watching us from the mountainside. But there's nothing there. Only snow, only wind. The wind is calling our names, one by one. Elena's hand trembled. She looked up, staring at the misty mountainside in the distance. She didn't see two eyes. She saw hundreds. In the shadows of the trees, in the shapes of the rocks, in the swirling clouds. The entire mountain was watching her. It felt as if they had stepped into a moment frozen in the past, a scar in time that would never heal. And at that exact moment, a strangely cold sensation touched her cheek. She looked up. A single large, perfect snowflake was gently falling. Then another, and another. The first flakes of the storm began to fall. They didn't fall naturally. They didn't spin or dance in the air. They fell straight down, heavy and silent like ashes from a celestial funeral. The cold they carried was not the cold of ice, but the cold of the grave. A chill that seeped deep into the marrow of her bones. In just a few minutes, the lone snowflakes had turned into a thick white curtain, erasing the horizon and transforming the world around them into a claustrophobic, suffocating space. The wind began to rise, not as a whistle, but as a low, mournful howl, as if the mountain itself were crying out, "We have to set up the tent." "Now!" Dmitri's voice rang out, cutting through the wind, pulling Elena from her stupor. But as Elena turned, her eyes scanning the area for a place to shelter, she saw it. A splash of orange. A color completely out of place amidst the deadly monochrome of the snow and rock. It stuck out from a snowdrift near the rock outcropping. A tattered piece of fabric flapping in the wind like a beckoning hand driven by a morbid curiosity. Elena staggered toward it, ignoring Dmitri's urgent calls. She used her hands to brush away the snow. The orange fabric was attached to a larger section buried beneath. She grabbed it and pulled hard. A dry, rustling sound echoed as a corner of an old, strangely preserved tent emerged from the snow. The fabric, though faded and torn in places, was absurdly intact inside that corner of the tent. Amidst items that had rotted into black dust and pieces of rusted metal, a shiny silver object caught her eye. It lay there on a piece of decomposed fabric lining. Standing out amidst the decay like an angel's teardrop, it was a compass. Classic in design, its silver casing intricately engraved. It was without a scratch, without a blemish, shining as if it had been polished just minutes ago. Lena knelt, her breath forming misty clouds. She felt as if she were being hypnotized. The howling wind, Dmitri's calls, everything seemed to recede, growing distant. All that remained was her, and this unnervingly perfect object. Her gloved hands slowly reached out. The moment her fingertips touched the cold metal surface, her world exploded in bone-deep cold. Not the cold of snow, but the cold of absolute emptiness. Shot from the compass up her arm, raced down her spine, and stabbed directly into her brain. At the same time, a chorus of overlapping, frantic whispers erupted inside her head. Dozens of voices, men, women, old, young, all, speaking at once in a language she couldn't understand. But she could feel the absolute terror and agony within. Yet she snatched her hand back as if burned, falling backward into the snow. The whispers stopped. The cold retreated, leaving behind a numb sensation. The compass still lay there, silent and innocent, Don't. Dmitri's shout was right next to her ear, his voice strained with panic. He had rushed to her side at some point. He wasn't looking at her, but staring at the compass with pure disgust and fear. Throw it away. He roared, taking a step back. That's not a compass. It's its eye. It's the lure. Throw it away now, Elena. But Elena couldn't. She stared at the silver object. Fear was screaming in her chest, but something else, something darker and more powerful, was whispering in her mind. Proof. This is the proof. An unexplainable phenomenon. The key to everything. The blizzard had now become a tempest, howling around them like a pack of hungry wolves. The wind whipped at Elena's face, sharp ice crystals, cutting into her skin, but she felt nothing. Her entire existence had shrunk, focused on the silver object lying in the snow. It lay there, disgustingly serene amidst nature's fury, as if it were the eye of the storm, the very source of this chaos. Elena, listen to me, Dmitri screamed, his voice nearly swallowed by the wind. He grabbed her shoulder, his fingers like a vice, trying to pull her from her trance. That thing doesn't belong to this world. It's an anchor. It keeps them here. We have to go. Proof. A cold, rational voice echoed in Elena's head, fighting against the storm within and without. This is the proof. An unexplainable phenomenon. The key to everything. Fear was screaming in her chest, a primal, instinctual urge telling her to run. But something else, something darker and more powerful, the pride of a scientist, the obsession to find an answer, was whispering, seducing her. Just touch it one more time. Record the data. You could explain it all. She stared at the silver object. For a mad second, its polished surface seemed to reflect not the gray sky, but something else. A blurry, rippling image like the surface of water. Curiosity won over fear. She slowly bent down, ignoring the painful grip of Dmitri's hand. Don't. Dmitri yelled, trying to pull her back.